Hello and welcome to Daily Records. I am Tommy Burton and we are talking about solo Beatles. We're talking about live solo Beatles. And we're going to talk about George. Live in Japan. I don't know if you can see that because I got the bag on it, but there's a nice kind of mark of George and some Japanese writing. Live in Japan with Eric Clapton and band. This was released on July 13th, 1992, and it's actually credited to George Harrison with Eric Clapton and band. Now, this came after the concert for Bangladesh, which I bet you thought I was going to talk about, but I didn't want to. I wanted to talk about this one. Now, this was recorded during a tour in December of 1991 that George did in Japan, hence the title. And it's a great selection of George Harrison solo hits, as well as quite a few Beatles songs. So he was starting to embrace his Beatle past. Sadly, this was the last album that would come out before he died. Which was almost 10 years later. So he had done the Traveling Wilburys thing. They had put out a couple of albums. And so Eric Clapton invited George Harrison to go on a Japanese tour. And the last time George Harrison had done any kind of touring was as far back as 1974. Go online and look it up. But it was in 1974 he did a North American tour to support the album Dark Horse. And it just was not very well received. He sounded bad, just an overall bad time. And so with that in the back of his mind, Harrison was always reluctant to go on the road. Not really his sort of wheelhouse, didn't quite enjoy it. But because of his buddy Eric Clapton, they went out there and they started doing these shows. And there was even a little bit of Eric Clapton set in there. And so he really enjoyed it because it was a good varied set list. He had done some Beatles songs. And finally, they recorded it. Had the good sense to record it and released it. Now, it was produced by Spike and Nelson Wilbury, which is funny because that is the two George Harrison aliases from the Wilburys. It really didn't do anything in the UK. Now, it did make a little noise on the US album charts, and it did quite well in Japan, as you can imagine. And so it holds up. It holds up well. It's just a good run through of George Harrison. Nice, polished performances. Now, a lot of people said some of these versions surpass the originals. I wouldn't go that far. But I do think it's nice because it sounds like it's the closest we're ever going to get to a modern day George Harrison live release. So it's fine. I don't think George is particularly what I would call like this high energy live performer, like say Paul McCartney is. So it's a decent album. Now, Clapton, of course, that's why he's on the front cover of the album. His name is While My Guitar Gently Weeps. He really shines on it. But it's worthwhile. Now, the Beatles songs on here, I Want to Tell You, Old Brown Shoe, Taxman, If I Needed Someone, Something. There's quite a few Piggies. And it's, the hits like Here Comes the Sun, Got My Mind Set on You, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Just a great selection of Harrison hits. Not essential, but decent. But I wanted to feature it because it is a live album, live in Japan by George Harrison with Eric Clapton and band. Today's Daily Record. Like, comment, subscribe, share. What do you think about this album? Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's TommyBurton75. I love interacting with you guys. In the meantime, see you all again tomorrow with another Daily Record.